The historians went and found Earl Warren Jr. for me, and they said, "Hey, this guy is here. You should talk to him." And he lives in Carmichael, and he's been really super gracious about sharing his time, sharing his insights, and connecting us more deeply with this story. I wanted to ask him first about what it was like growing up as the son of the
best justice in America.
Best justice in America, according to sources. Also a governor. So tell me a little bit about your life growing up and then becoming a judge.
Well, I had great parents, and they both kept all of us. There were six of us children in the family, and they kept all of us pretty much away from the problems that they had, and the limelight, I mean, so to speak, and the demands. And so we had a very normal life. Outside activities mainly, a lot of sports for the boys and even the girls. And so that's about how it was. It was pretty normal. We all went to.
Were you in the governor's mansion?
Yeah, we were in the governor's mansion. The only drawback at that time was, that part of town had nothing but very old pensioners living in it. There were no other kids to play with, and so we had to walk 2 or 3 miles to reach some of our friends. And I say walk because we did. Of course, this was wartime primarily, and we came here in '43, and so it was during wartime, and there was no transportation, so to speak, and certainly no cars.
How old were you when you became a judge? And how old were you when this trial came along?
I was 36, which was pretty young at the time for a good judge, but that's what I was.
And how old were you when the trial came to you?
39.
Okay.
Yeah. I have to think now. It's a long time ago.
Yeah, he's thinking back nearly 50 years. I think back a week, and I can't remember. So the biggest question most people have is the decision to take the jury to see the dance. And I know that the defense attorney argued for it, but I assume that every defense attorney might argue for it. Why did it persuade you? Why did you take the jury to the club?
Well, shortly before the trial, the Supreme Court of the United States had come down with a ruling that defined what obscenity was and what lewd conduct was. And they came up with a very broad concept, or I guess formula, if you call it that, which said that it had to be, the act had to be beyond the standards of the community. And then that later raised all kinds of problems. First, what were standards, and secondly, what was the community? So what we did in this trial was we utilized all of those, what I felt was the best way to go, and we ended up with this trial.
In this case, you define the community as including San Francisco. Yep. And that's how Carol Doda's testimony came in. Had you seen Carol Doda perform before she performed in your trial?
No, she performed afterwards. Yeah. Yeah, she was a great witness. She really was. She was a perfect lady at the trial. She was one of the best witnesses I've ever seen on the stand, which surprised everybody. And so that was a really good part. But the sheriff didn't like it, and the district attorney didn't like it either.
Tell me about what the courtroom was like that day. You bring them to the Pink Pussycat Club in Orangevale. How do you try to get a recreation of what happened the day they were arrested?
Well, first of all, we had the defendants, 2 women, swear that this is what that they would do, or the one that was going to perform anyway, swear that this is what she did regularly in her routines, and also had the manager of the club sworn and that this was a true reproduction of what she did.
I'm gonna turn to the audience here. Any questions from the audience for Earl Warren Jr.? Yeah.
When I read Gideon and Brown v. Board and Arizona v. Miranda in law school, I never thought I'd be watching burlesque with Earl Warren. I'm so happy that you're here. It's so wonderful to meet you. And thanks for your work on this case in particular, which is most relevant. Did your father talk with you about his cases? Did you ever get any insight to what his days were like?
Well, hold on. I actually talked very little about him. I showed him some of the things I had written about the case and said about it afterwards. But you know, he was a great fan of Sally Rand. Anybody remember Sally Rand? When the feathers came out tonight, I thought of that, and I thought even my mother liked her. And incidentally, if the girls had performed half as well as they did the girls did tonight, and the girl incidentally is anybody younger than me, it would have been much more enjoyable than it was.
Test 1, 2. Oh, we've got 2 mics now.
Okay.
You talked about whether or not your father communicated with you about this, but there was a lot of blowback and pressure. Talk about the pushback you got from this trial.
Oh, a lot. I don't know why I was assigned the trial. I have some feelings about it, but some of them were negative, and that I think I'd better not talk about those. But I was, and put on the spot, and after the trial was going and some of these things started coming out, I received a lot of feedback from all kinds of people around the community, and some of it was very, very tough. Some of it was death threats, you know, as judges often get, and things like that, but they never materialized. And then, of course, when the sheriff, as soon as the verdict came in, the sheriff phoned me and he said that that was on his list, and he called me everything. And the district attorney did virtually the same thing the next day in the press. And so it was interesting because this ignited some sort of fervor amongst the people at the local colleges, City College and Sac State, and some of them got very excited about it, and so much that they caused problems in the sheriff's office and in the district attorney's office. And as a matter of fact, both of them lost their jobs at the next election, which was not long afterwards. And it was just a set of circumstances. It was very unusual. On the other hand, one of the things that happened from this trial is tremendous support, I should say, from the religious community, religious churches, and religious schools. I was asked to speak at practically all the local schools, the Catholics, Jesuit, the brothers, the girls' schools, St. Francis and Loretto, and then law schools started in Santa Clara Law School and Davis Law School, and it went on and on like that. But also one of the great things is that the churches themselves, regardless of denomination, for instance, at the Unity Church, which had Muslims and Jews and Christians of all sorts, and Hindus and Sikhs, and they wrote a poem that was about 5 pages long, and it was entitled "It's Only Plumbing." And that was in support. I probably should have published it, but I didn't.
It's not too late. It's not too late. Publish it.
You have it?
Just listening to you talk, this is just so fascinating because so many of these issues are so current right now with the First Amendment, freedom of expression, freedom of religion, and also the respect for our judiciary and its decisions. And I'm just wondering, I'd love to hear your take on sort of how we've evolved. Do you feel like we're just sort of kind of in the same place, that these issues will always just continue to be relitigated and each generation will face them individually, or do you think that that things have changed significantly since then?
Well, certainly the climate has changed. With we can see on apparently on computers and even in PG-rated movies now is we put a lot of this to rest. And I think that's why we don't see as many charges of this sort come up nowadays. The times have changed. They were changing a little bit at that time because it was the hippie days. And that was a step in the right direction. But incidentally, if this had been a jury just of men, I think there would have been convictions across the board. But we had women on there, and ever since, as far as I know, smart defense attorneys in these cases have made sure that they had as close to half the women as they could, because women are much more clinical and maybe insightful, I guess you'd say, on these things than men are. Men seem to have somewhat of a hang-up towards feeling that they have to protect women and protect them by acting this way. And maybe they feel a little guilty because most of these places are places that cater to men. And that was an interesting side effect that I think the case has had.
Brilliant.
Hi, good evening. My name is Lady Ashante. I'm with the Midtown Moxies, and I'm also an avid volunteer with the LGBT Center here in Midtown Sacramento.
Yeah, woo!
My question is, as someone who was so opposed and who had so much opposition towards you, where did you find the knowledge and the wherewithal to go against the grind and to vote against what everybody else was for? Where did you find that desire?
When did I find the desire?
Yeah, and what motivated you to vote against this proposition?
In the face of the opposition, how did you sort of deal with the onslaught of people telling you that you were wrong, or
I see.
the threats?
Well, I guess I held it in too long myself. Actually, I criticized myself for doing that. But those things come up, and I guess you just have to, hopefully you can find something to steel yourself against it, and if you know you're right, stick with it. That's all I can say. That's the way I was raised, and I hope it's the way I stay.
Yeah.